This is VOA News. I'm Joe Ramsey. Facing a likely roadblock from Republicans in the U.S. House of Representatives on aid for Ukraine, President Joe Biden said Wednesday he's planning to give a major speech on the issue and hinted there may be another means to support Kyiv if Congress balks.
It does worry me, but I know there are a majority of members of the House and Senate in both parties who have said that they support funding Ukraine.
Aid for Ukraine has been a source of tension and uncertainty as several Republicans in the House have severe doubts or openly oppose additional funding to sustain the Ukrainian military. The U.S. House of Representatives remains in historic chaos Wednesday, a day after it booted its speaker out of the job, a first for the House, as infighting in the narrowly divided Republican majority toppled Kevin McCarthy from the position. Reuters correspondent Angela Johnston reports.
Until a new speaker is installed, it's unlikely Congress will take action on bills to fund the government. That legislative halt comes as another government shutdown deadline looms on November 18th. But with Republicans needing a week to choose a new speaker, it would stall talks on government funding. Hard-right conservatives like House Representative Matt Gaetz, who called for McCarthy's ouster, were angry over the then-speaker's failure to win extremely deep spending cuts in those funding bills.
Reuters correspondent Angela Johnston. Italian authorities were investigating on Wednesday the cause of the horrific crash of a bus carrying foreign tourists on the outskirts of Venice, which killed 21 people, including several children, and injured 15 others. The electric bus crashed through the guardrail and off an overpass late on Tuesday. This is VOA News. Former U.S. President Donald Trump's court appearances are no longer distractions from his campaign to return to the White House. They are central to it. AP correspondent Julie Walker reports.
The Republican presidential frontrunner is in New York for the opening of a civil fraud trial accusing him of grossly inflating the value of his businesses. Donald Trump is not scheduled to testify yet, so doesn't have to be here, but he's seizing the opportunity.
This has to do with election interference, plain and simple. They're trying to damage me so that I don't do as well as I'm doing in the election.
Trump's appearances here drew far more media attention than any campaign rally would have and gave the former president a fresh opportunity to rile up his base and to fundraise. At court in Manhattan, I'm Julie Walker.
Kenyan lawmakers say parliamentary approval is required before the deployment of police to the Kenya-led peacekeeping mission in Haiti to combat gang violence that was approved by the UN Security Council this week. An opposition lawmaker told a session of Parliament's lower house on Wednesday the conditions for foreign deployment hadn't been met under the National Police Act. He also said the country's security needs, quote, ought to take first precedence before any foreign commitments. 3 scientists in the U.S. won the Nobel Prize in Chemistry for their work on quantum dots, particles just a few atoms in diameter that can release very bright-colored light. AP correspondent Charles de Ledesma reports.
Applications in everyday life include electronics and medical imaging. Winner Monji Bawendi of MIT says he wasn't thinking about how far it could go when he started researching quantum dots. The colour quantum dots emit depends on the size of the particles. Bawendi says larger dots shine red, smaller dots shine blue.
Most people who have come across them will have come across them through their television screens, where they're being used to create the red and the green colors.
I'm Charles de Ledesma.
A prosecutor accused cryptocurrency trading platform FTX founder Sam Bankman-Fried of stealing at least $10 billion from his customers as opening statements began on Wednesday in a federal court trial in New York City. Prosecutor Nathan Raines said the 31-year-old California man defrauded thousands of investors and customers in his business by siphoning off their money for his own uses. Defense lawyer Mark Cohen insists Bankman-Fried didn't steal from anyone. Find more on our website, voanews.com. I'm Joe Ramsey, VOA News.
This is VOA News. I'm Alexis Strope. EU Foreign Policy Chief Josep Borrell declared Thursday that a strike that killed at least 51 people gathered in eastern Ukraine had brought Russian atrocities to, quote, yet another grim level. Lauren Anthony reports from Reuters.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky warned European leaders on Thursday that Russia could attack other countries if the continent wavered in its support for Kiev. He said if Russia had the chance to rebuild its military capabilities, it could widen the war within 5 years. Zelensky gave an emotive speech at the summit of the European political community in Granada, Spain.
We have to win in Ukraine so that Putin cannot scale this aggression to someone else, and it is realistic.
Zelensky added that he was still confident of continued US and European financial aid despite political storms in Washington and elsewhere.
Lauren Anthony from Reuters reporting a new section of wall was being built on the southern border of the United States. While Biden had campaigned against the border wall, he says there's nothing he can do about this particular section.
The border wall, the money was appropriated for the border wall. I tried to get them to reappropriate, to redirect that money. They didn't. They wouldn't. And in the meantime, there's nothing under the law other than they have to use the money for what it was appropriated. I can't stop that.
Do you believe the border wall works?
No.
The new construction would build barriers and roads in a part of Texas that has seen large numbers of migrants crossing from Mexico. Syria's health minister has raised the casualty tolls from a drone attack that hit a packed military graduation ceremony in the central city of Homs to 80 killed and 240 wounded. Video obtained by Reuters showed many bodies and blood stains on the ground outside a building. Health Minister Hassan Al-Gabash says civilians, including 6 children and military personnel, are among those killed on Thursday. For additional stories, visit our website, voanews.com. This is VOA News. The Pentagon says the U.S. military shot down an armed Turkish drone that got close to American troops in northeastern Syria. AP Washington correspondent Sagar Meghani reports.
Brigadier General Pat Ryder says U.S. forces were in an America-declared restricted operating zone as Turkish drones bombed nearby targets. One drone got within 550 yards.
And U.S. F-16 fighters subsequently shot down the UAV in self-defense.
It was a rare use of force by one NATO ally against another.
It's a regrettable incident, but U.S. commanders on the ground did assess that there was a potential threat, and so they took prudent action.
Ryder says there is no indication Turkey was intentionally targeting U.S. troops.
At the time, you don't know what you don't know.
And Pentagon Chief Lloyd Austin talked with his Turkish counterpart, stressing their close coordination in the fight against Islamic State militants. Sagar Meghani, Washington.
Nigeria's main opposition says it will present new evidence to support its court challenge seeking to overturn this year's presidential election. First runner-up Atiku Abubakar and his lawyer alleged Thursday that President Bola Tinubu forged a diploma from an American university. A spokesman for Tinubu has denied the allegation. In a transcript of a deposition, the registrar of Chicago State University says the school, quote, has the original record of Bola Tinubu, but the official says it has no record of issuing the diploma in question, which indicates Tinubu graduated in 1979. As the 2024 election cycle heats up, some in Congress are pressing Meta and X executives on how they plan to tackle AI deception on their platform. AP's Lisa Dwyer has the details.
Deepfakes generated by artificial intelligence are having their moment this year, at least when it comes to making it look or sound like the famous did something that they really did not, such as Tom Hanks hawking a dental plan or Senator Rand Paul sitting on the Capitol steps in a red bathrobe. Those images were fakes. Google was the first big tech company to say it would impose new labels on deceptive AI-generated political ads, which can fake a candidate's voice or actions. Now, Senator Amy Klobuchar and Representative Yvette Clarke have sent a letter to the CEOs of Meta and X asking for their response on how they plan to handle AI deception. They've asked for a response by October 27th. I'm Lisa Dwyer.
A Spanish charity says Italy has impounded its rescue ship Open Arms for violating rules by Italy's right-wing government banning multiple rescues at sea. The charity Open Arms says the boat is blocked from leaving port for 20 days, and the charity has been levied a fine of between 3,000 and 10,000 euros. Open Arms calls the sanction a violation of the law of the sea. I'm Alexis Strope, VOA News. This is VOA News. I'm Alexis Strope. Simone Biles has entered uncharted territory with her latest victory on the global stage. Correspondent Gethin Coolbaugh from AP reports.
Simone Biles has won the individual all-around title at the World Championships for the 6th time to become the most decorated gymnast in history. 10 years after she won her first in the same Belgian city of Antwerp as a 16-year-old, Biles scored 58.399 points across the balance beam, floor, vault, and uneven bars to beat Rebecca Andrade of Brazil by 1.633 points. Biles' U.S. teammate Shilese Jones took the bronze medal. Biles now has 34 medals across the World Championships and Olympics, making her the most decorated gymnast, male or female, ever. I'm Gethin Coolbaugh.
The Office of the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights said on Friday the award for the Nobel Peace Prize went to jailed activist Narges Mohammadi, highlighted the courage and determination of Iranian women.
We've seen their courage and determination in the face of reprisals, intimidation, violence, and detention.
OHCHR spokesperson Elizabeth Rossell also reiterated calls for the release of Mohammadi, one of Iran's leading activists who has campaigned for both women's rights and the abolition of the death penalty. An aid group says heavy artillery fire killed at least 11 people and wounded 90 in a major city in conflict-torn Sudan. Doctors Without Borders said the attack took place in the city of Omdurman, just next to the capital of Khartoum, on Thursday, but did not say which of the country's warring parties was responsible. It said that children were among the dead. The group, also known by its French acronym MSF, says the wounded are being treated at Al-Nao Hospital in Omdurman. It's one of several facilities where the medical group operates. You'll find expanded coverage of world news and events at our website, voanews.com, 24 hours a day. This is VOA News. Shock and horror is giving way to grief and anger in the Ukrainian village of Hroza, where a Russian missile killed at least 52 funeral goers on Thursday. Reuters correspondent Chris Dignam has more.
Residents made space for more graves in a burial plot outside the Ukrainian hamlet of Hroza on Friday as they reeled from the horror of what happened the day before. Dozens of people gathered in a local cafe for a meal on Thursday to honor a soldier who died when the missile struck. Moscow denies targeting civilians in its full-scale invasion, a position it repeated on Friday in response to the strike. Thousands have been killed in a bombing campaign that has hit apartment blocks and restaurants, as well as power stations, bridges, and grain silos. Not all of the victims could be immediately identified. Valery Kozier says the village will be forever changed.
They were all from here, and now they are gone. Now I'll have to cross out half of my phone book. I won't be able to get a hold of them in the next world.
Chris Dignam from Reuters. The Biden administration has ordered 2 Russian diplomats expelled from the United States in retaliation for the expulsion of 2 U.S. diplomats from Moscow last month. The State Department says it took the action in response to Russia declaring the 2 American diplomats persona non grata because of contacts with a Russian national who had once worked for the now-closed U.S. consulate in Russia's far eastern city of Vladivostok and was arrested this year. Liberians voted in an election on Tuesday in which soccer star turned president George Weah is seeking more time after a first-term critics say was marred by corruption and continued hardship. Reuters correspondent David Doyle has more.
The former soccer star, who came to power in 2017, says the global health crisis set back his plans, but that he is on track to deliver progress in the poverty-stricken country. He's campaigning, as he did last time around, on building new roads in a country where many unpaved routes become impassable in the rainy season. Weah has also built hospitals and introduced free education, but some voters are disappointed by his failure to improve living standards or tackle corruption. Last year, Weah fired his chief of staff and 2 other senior officials after the United States imposed sanctions on them for corruption.
David Doyle from Reuters. Alaska fishermen will be able to harvest red king crab, the largest and most lucrative of all the Bering Sea crab species, for the first time in 2 years. The news offers a slight reprieve to the beleaguered fishery beset by low numbers likely exacerbated by climate change. There was no such rebound for snow crab, however, and the Alaska Department of Fish and Game announced Friday that fishery will remain closed amid population declines. I'm Alexis Strope, VOA News. This is VOA News. I'm Alexis Strope. Palestinian Islamist group Hamas took Israel by surprise on Saturday with its biggest attack in decades. A sudden assault by gunmen who crossed into Israeli villages killed dozens of people and brought hostages back into the Gaza Strip. Alex Cohen from Reuters has more.
During a security cabinet meeting, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said, "Since this morning, the state of Israel has been at war. Our first objective is to clear out enemy forces that infiltrated and restore the security and quiet to the communities that have been attacked. The second objective, at the same time, is to exact an immense price from the enemy within the Gaza Strip too." Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh said the assault that had begun in Gaza would spread to the West Bank and Jerusalem. "This was the morning of defeat and humiliation upon our enemy, its soldiers, and its settlers," he said, adding, "What happened reveals the greatness of our preparation. What happened today reveals the weakness of the enemy."
Alex Cohen from Reuters. UN High Commissioner for Human Rights Volker Turk called for an, quote, an immediate stop to violence in Israel and Gaza. UN Human Rights Office spokesperson Liz Throssell spoke for Turk via video news conference from Geneva.
UN High Commissioner for Human Rights Volker Turk is shocked and appalled at reports this morning that hundreds, possibly thousands of indiscriminate rockets have been fired by Palestinian armed groups into Israel. He's also deeply concerned at reports that Israeli civilians have been taken hostage. Civilians must never be the target of attacks. The High Commissioner is calling for an immediate stop to the violence and appealing to all sides and key countries in the region to de-escalate to avoid further bloodshed.
You'll find expanded coverage of world news and events at our website, voanews.com, 24 hours a day. This is VOA News. UN and local investigators are searching for answers at the site of a Russian missile strike on a small Ukrainian village. The strike on Thursday killed nearly 52 people gathered for a dead soldier's wake, according to officials in Kyiv. Representatives from a UN monitoring mission have come to the preliminary conclusion that nearly all those killed were civilians, according to a UN statement shared with AP. Two powerful earthquakes have killed dozens of people in western Afghanistan. AP correspondent Karen Shamus reports.
One Afghan official said 4 villages in Herat province bore the brunt of the quakes and aftershocks. Dozens of houses have been damaged. The United States Geological Survey reported both quakes were 6.3 on the Richter scale. In Herat, rescue workers shout to clear the way as they push an injured man on a stretcher into Herat Hospital. A senior doctor at the hospital, Dr. Shahpour Muhib, said both state and private ambulances were still responding to patients in and around the city centre. Telephone connections went down in Herat, making it hard to get details from the affected areas. Videos on social media showed hundreds of people in the streets outside their homes and offices in Herat city. I'm Karen Shamas.
Ecuadorian authorities say a 7th man accused in the assassination of a presidential candidate in August has been killed inside prison. The announcement Saturday came a day after 6 other men allegedly linked to the political crime were slain in a different prison. The killing of the 7 suspects happened a little more than a week before Ecuador holds a presidential runoff election, and as the authorities struggle to explain how this was possible. The first week of trial for Sam Bankman-Fried's fraud case ends with FTX's co-founder telling jurors that the 31-year-old stole customer funds from the beginning. AP correspondent Julie Walker reports.
FTX co-founder Gary Wang, who took a plea deal, told jurors that eventually the losses at SBF's hedge fund, Alameda Research, became so large that there was no way to hide them any longer. Wang testified FTX was not fine, referring to the now infamous tweet that Bankman-Fried wrote only a few days before the exchange filed for bankruptcy in November of 2022. Prosecutors allege Bankman-Fried stole billions of dollars from investors and customers in order to fund a lavish lifestyle in the Bahamas and by the influence of politicians, celebrities, and the public. Julie Walker, New York.
A community leader in eastern Congo says at least 15 people are dead after a group of children brought home an explosive device they had found while playing Friday evening. The children found the bomb near a palm oil tree and took it back with them. The device exploded while some of the adults were trying to figure out what it was, because of all of the hostilities between local armed groups vying for control of villages. I'm Alexis Strope, VOA News.
This is VOA News. I'm Joe Ramsey. Explosions rocked Gaza on Sunday night as Israel battled the territory after suffering its bloodiest attack in decades. On Saturday, Hamas fighters rampaged through Israeli towns, killing 700 and abducting dozens more, threatening a major new Middle East war. Earlier on Sunday, Israeli airstrikes hit housing blocks, tunnels, a mosque, and homes of Hamas officials in Gaza, killing more than 400 people, including 20 children, as Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu vowed, quote, mighty vengeance for this Black Day. A U.S. official says there are at least 4 American casualties from the attack in Israel, and the U.S. Defense Department is sending an aircraft carrier strike group to the Mediterranean Sea in support of Israel. AP correspondent Jackie Quinn reports.
Secretary of State Antony Blinken on NBC's Meet the Press says they're investigating reports of Americans taken hostage.
We're on guard wherever American citizens may be and could be in danger.
2 U.S. officials on condition of anonymity say the Pentagon sending an aircraft carrier strike group to the eastern Mediterranean, the USS Gerald R. Ford, along with its warplanes, destroyers, and cruisers, as the Israeli government declares war on Hamas.
We have paid a heavy price, but we will restore security.
Defense spokesman Daniel Hagari, I'm Jackie Quinn.
Azerbaijan's president said on Sunday his country was ready to hold talks with Armenia on a prospective peace treaty after reclaiming the breakaway Armenian-populated region of Nagorno-Karabakh, noting that Georgia would be a preferable venue for the negotiations. It comes after the president snubbed a planned meeting with Armenia's prime minister on the sidelines of a European summit on Thursday. This is VOA News. The Taliban said on Sunday more than 2,400 people were killed in earthquakes in Afghanistan in the west of the country, 35 kilometers northwest of the city of Herat. Reuters correspondent Alex Cohen has more.
The natural disaster made an already challenging situation for the country even more so, according to Arshad Malik, the country director for Save the Children in Afghanistan.
Food insecure area already because of the economic situation and the drought. So this is a crisis on top of another crisis which they were facing already. And the families need urgent support for now.
Another issue, the healthcare system, which is reliant almost entirely on foreign aid, has faced crippling cuts in the 2 years since the Taliban took over, and much international assistance, which had formed the backbone of the economy, was halted.
Reuters correspondent Alex Cohen. More than 100 people, including women and the elderly, have been detained by police following protests in the east of Angola, local authorities said Sunday. The local interior ministry of an eastern province said in a statement a group had entered the public highway, creating obstacles for passersby and causing security problems. The protesters, also including children, were demonstrating against the government, high living cost, alleged state corruption, and service delivery. California's Democratic Governor Gavin Newsom has taken action on a slew of bills, including food safety. AP correspondent Julie Walker reports.
California becomes the first state to ban 4 chemicals from food and drinks. Among the ingredients the law bans is red dye number 3, a food coloring used in candy like Peeps. It's one of several laws Governor Gavin Newsom signed Saturday. He also signed into law a measure allowing legislative staffers to unionize, a move that comes after lawmakers passed several labor initiatives amid a summer of strikes by hotel workers, actors, and writers. Newsom has until October 14th to act on legislation lawmakers have sent to his desk. I'm Julie Walker.
A typhoon tracked towards China's resort islands on Sunday after skirting Hong Kong, bringing heavy rain and powerful gusts, while prompting the closure of transport services and schools in the financial hub. The typhoon comes just a month after Hong Kong was lashed by another, which triggered its highest T10 storm alert. A week after that, the city experienced its highest rainfall in nearly 140 years, flooding subway stations and malls and causing landslides. Find more on our website, voanews.com. I'm Joe Ramsey. This is VOA News. I'm Joe Ramsey. United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres said on Monday he was deeply distressed by an announcement Israel will initiate a complete siege of the Gaza Strip following an attack by the Palestinian Islamist group Hamas over the weekend.
No electricity, food, or fuel. The humanitarian situation in Gaza was extremely dire before these hostilities. Now it will only deteriorate exponentially.
The Israeli military said it had called up an unprecedented 300,000 reservists and was imposing a total blockade of the Gaza Strip in response to Hamas attacks that killed hundreds of Israelis and prompted retaliatory Israeli airstrikes. Iran's support for the Palestinian group Hamas is in the spotlight after Hamas militants crossed into southern Israel Saturday, attacking civilians and soldiers. Henry Ridgwell has more from London.
The Hamas attack on Israel Saturday took most regional powers by surprise, but many analysts say Iran would have approved the assault in advance. Lina Khatib is director of the Middle East Institute at SOAS University of London.
Can only happen with explicit prior direct agreement from Iran. But this is very different from saying that Iran ordered these groups to do these attacks.
Iran has described Hamas's actions as the manifestation of resistance, but denied any responsibility. Henry Ridgwell, VOA News, London.
The U.S. State Department says at least 9 American citizens have been killed in the weekend Hamas attacks on Israel. That's an increase over the previous toll of 4. It says an undetermined number of American citizens remain missing and unaccounted for. This is VOA News. At least 2,400 people were killed, thousands more injured, and homes completely destroyed in one of the deadliest earthquakes to hit Afghanistan in years, Reuters correspondent Edward Barn reports.
The Taliban administration said thousands were killed and many more injured in the quakes. At a hospital in Herat, some of the injured were being treated. The World Health Organization says women and children made up 2/3 of the victims hospitalized. Afghanistan's healthcare system, largely reliant on foreign aid, has faced crippling cuts in the 2 years since the Taliban took over. Much international assistance, which had formed the backbone of the economy, was halted. Diplomats and aid officials say concerns over Taliban restrictions on women and competing global humanitarian crises are causing donors to pull back on financial support.
Reuters correspondent Edward Barn. Flooding triggered by heavy monsoon rains in Myanmar's southern areas has displaced more than 14,000 people and disrupted traffic on the rail lines that connect the country's biggest cities. A senior official at the Ministry of Social Welfare, Relief and Resettlement says constant rainfall that began last week has caused flooding in the low-lying areas. Witnesses said the floodwater stood as much as 2.5 meters deep. This year's winner of the Nobel Prize in Economics has been announced. VOA's Rick Pantaleo has more.
Christopher Edling, Nobel Economics Committee member, announced the winner from the Royal Swedish Academy of Sciences in Stockholm.
The Royal Swedish Academy of Sciences has decided to award Sveriges Riksbanks Prize in Economic Sciences in memory of Alfred Nobel 2023 to Professor Claudia Goldin, Harvard University, USA, for having advanced our understanding of women's labor market outcomes.
Professor Golden is only the third woman out of the 93 Nobel laureates to have won the Economics Prize. Rick Pantaleo, VOA News.
The Dominican Republic announced new measures to strengthen control at its border with Haiti, including an indefinite extension of the border shutdown it enacted last month, plus boosting military forces as well as a new exports ban. The Dominican Republic sealed its border with Haiti last month after it deemed construction work on a canal diverting water from a river a treaty violation, since it was launched unilaterally by Haitians without government support. Haiti's government responded to Monday's measures by saying it backed the rights of its citizens to equitable use of binational waters and continued to favor dialogue with Santo Domingo. Find more online at voanews.com. I'm Joe Ramsey.